Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I will welcome you to this, getting some backdraft there. Still getting, all right. Welcome you to the agenda of the regular meeting of Freeport City Council this Tuesday, February 20th, 2024 at 6 p.m. I would declare that I will call the meeting to order, declare a quorum present, and declare notices legally posted pursuant to the Opens Meetings Act. At this time, I would ask Councilman Rosso if he would lead us in the prayer and pledges of allegiance.
Let's pray. Gracious Father, we're so grateful that you gave us this opportunity to come here today. We ask you, Lord, to have your way in this meeting today, Lord. Bless your people, the shut in, those that are sick and afflicted, Lord. We pray for our troops overseas. We pray for the city of Freeport. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, we have citizen comments, and we have two. Mr. Manning Rollerson.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
I come to the Council today because I have some concerns, and one of my major concerns is what's going to be on the agenda later about the pump station and the building of the community of the East End. We need the infrastructure and we need our homes in Freeport. When it comes to that water system, I don't care, because it's been numerous years upon decades that should have been done. There's no excuse for it. Every piece of urban land that we had in this city is gone. Every bit of it. Every contract that was done in this city to bring homes to this city, there's no homes. And they have not built not one home since 2012 and 2016 under last administrations. Under the mud projects, where's the homes? We don't even have the homes. But now we're going to take the money from the East End that the city was kindly to help the people lose everything that they have, and take the money and let's fix the water system. No, let's get our streets and our new homes here, because there's no homes. This population is decreasing since 1979. How many people we got here now? 10,000 in the whole city? Where's the homes at? Those are lies and bad contracts that these people need to be held accountable. But my thing with you today, and I expect an answer from my mayor. There's 6 deaths in this city from fentanyl. 1 overdose at the high school. Why haven't now one of you people sitting up here that's elected to this city has said nothing about the deaths of these young people and these fentanyl deaths in this community? Why haven't one of y'all brought that up? Why haven't one of y'all said anything about it? Why? Isn't we important enough, the citizens, that we should know about our children and bad drugs in our community? You can't get a phone call from none of y'all. And that goes across the board right here. Every last one of y'all, because you're responsible for every single person in this city. Not just your ward, but the decisions you make the decisions for all of us. And when one person dies in this city, and then you see 2 people die, then you see 3 people die. When it gets to 6 people, that should be a concern, especially when it comes to drugs in this community. And now one of y'all had the Christianity to come out and say, hey, there's deaths in our community, our children overdosing. And they got little babies. That's the thing. They got babies. And who's going to raise those babies? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sam Reyna.
Mayor, Council, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
My name is Sam Reina, and I reside at 2002 North Avenue G. I submitted a package for candidate package for mayor, and this is a letter that I received from the city. Mr. Reina, this serves as notification that after legal review of your application for a place on the ballot for a general election for a city, school, or other political subdivisions, and in accordance with the Texas Election Code Section 141.001-A4, and is interpreted by Attorney General's opinion, which was filed in 2019, as a convicted felon, you are not eligible to run for public office. That summary, which, like I said, was filed in 2019, subsection 141.001A4 of the Election Code provides that to be eligible as a candidate for public office, a person must have not been finally convicted of a felony from which the person has not been pardoned or otherwise released from the resulting disabilities. That resulting disabilities is the one that's given the First Court of Appeals problems. But the First Court of Appeal has always been ruling on behalf of the appellants because of the resulting disabilities. It's not clarifying enough. That has been amended by House Bill 1316, 2 years after Attorney General filed his opinion in 2021. Section 141.001A, Election Code, is amended to read as follows. To be eligible to be a candidate for or elected or appointed to a public elective office in this state, a person must have not been finally convicted of a felony, or if so convicted, has a fully discharged that person's sentence, including any terms of incarceration, parole, or supervision, or completed a period of probation ordered by any court. Okay? Fully discharged. The last page is my discharge papers. Okay? Fully discharged. That's what House Bill 1360 says, fully discharged. The last page is got my discharge date, April 12, 19. Okay? That is when I was fully discharged. My sentence started in 1994 and discharged in 2019. That's 25 years. My sentence was for 25 years. So I have fully completed my sentence and I'm fully discharged. My obligation to the state is final. I'm not a ward of the state, and I want my name on that ballot.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next we'll go to presentation and announcements, and we have number one, presentation by the EDC regarding parks improvement. Robert Johnson. So, it did not make it up.
Good evening, Mayor and council members.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
I would like to just do a brief summation of a program that we're working on, the Parks Program. This is because of, really driven by Mr. Matamoros, was the one that came up with this on the EDC side to push this, but it's a joint program between the city and the EDC. What we're doing is focusing on 3 parks: Peppermint Park, Arrington Park, and Stephen F. Austin Park. Those 3 are the ones that are most used and need the most in upgrades, by way of upgrades. Currently, you can see the Next slide. The current conditions, you can see dilapidated equipment, broken equipment, swings that are falling apart. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see benches that don't look too comfortable and just kind of a general dilapidated state on all the parks. So we'd like to upgrade the parks, and if I could talk about the budget for a moment. The first park, Peppermint Park, is a total of $123,218. The main portion of that would be the walking trail and the fencing, as with all of them, would be the walking trail and the fencing, adding new benches, 2 to 5 play area, and a age 5 to 12 play area. Arrington Park, you see the fencing and walking trail really driving the cost, going up because there's more park to fence around and put a walking trail around. And I'll show you those in a moment. Again, more 5 to 12 play areas, 2 to 5 play areas, new basketball goals, borders for the play area, mulch. And if we go to our final one, Stephen F. Austin Park, we see the total is $290,086.80. And again, the majority of that is going to fencing and a walking trail, along with the 5 to 12 play area and the 2 to 5 play area, just upgrading all that equipment. So that brings the park project total to $610,232.70. And what we're doing is going to our community partners, our industrial partners and businesses, and asking them to help defray the cost. So far, we've gone to a couple of them, and there hasn't been a agreement yet, but they're working on looking at taking over the cost of the parks. The first park, Peppermint Park, you can see the aerial view. Next slide. The aerial view, the park condition is not too good. You can see it even from this aerial photo that it's dilapidated, the colors coming off, doesn't look too good. And then the next slide, you've got an artist rendering, conceptual site plan. And the next slide is where we get to the meat of it, of what it would look like. There you see the walking trail and the fencing and the sitting areas, just really bringing those parks back to life. And next slide. New playground equipment. Next slide. It's just different viewpoints of the improvements. And finally, the budget that we've already talked about. Arrington Park, again, a bird's eye view of the current condition. It looks, even from the air, pretty bad. So if you go to the next slide, you've got the conceptual site plan again by our architects of where the equipment will go. Equipment, sometimes referred to as toys. New swing sets. There you see the larger walking trail, the fencing. Next slide. And the final slide. There you see it from a different angle. Oh no, there's one more. Okay, and that brings us to Arrington Park's budget. And then finally, Stephen F. Austin Park. There you see the aerial view, and the view is all the way up to the baseball fields. There would be baseball fields behind that. If you go to the next slide, you see the artist's conceptual drawing. And then the artist's rendering on the next slide. Next slide. Next slide. And final slide. So in summation, what we're doing is going to our business partners and basically asking them to invest in our community with this parks program. We're hoping to get the total of what the parks will cost. And that's the program.
Do you have any industry partners that have willing to invest yet?
Well, we've heard that one of them's willing to invest, but they have not given us a dollar amount yet. They're going through channels at their work to find out exactly how much they can give. We gave this business the opportunity to invest and just take on one park is what we're kind of hoping for. But I don't know if they'll do that, but that's what we're kind of hoping for. Sponsor a park and then get your name on a plaque type of thing.
And will there be any money used from y'all's budget towards this?
We have $400,000 earmarked toward the park project. We're hoping not to have to use that.
Okay. All right. Mr. Rollerson, do you have a comment? Hold on one second till you get up to the mic. Go ahead when you get to the mic.
On the Peppermint Park deal, all that equipment at Peppermint Park is brand new. We just had Peppermint Park redone under Tim Kelty. Everything at Peppermint Park is spank brand new. That was the last park that just got completed last year. So we don't need no new toy equipment on Peppermint Park, because that was just done.
Thank you,
So,
sir.
you know, why would we do that?
All right. Ms. Clark? Will you fill out a form, please, ma'am? Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Carla Clark, 411 Sailfish. So if you have $400,000 for the parks budget in the EDC, and this is gonna cost $610,000, so where is the other gonna come from? Is it gonna come from the city? And who's gonna maintain these parks afterwards if this were done? Would the city or the EDC or partners somehow?
That's you, and then Lance, excuse me.
The money is hopefully coming from our business community to help sponsor the parks. We're hoping to not have to spend any of that $400,000 on the parks. We would like to go to area businesses and get those funds to cover the whole parks project. As far as maintaining the park, I'll defer to Lance.
Yeah, the city will maintain the parks. We currently maintain them now, so we'll continue to maintain the parks after the projects are finished.
All right, thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Oh, yes, ma'am.
Hello, council. I'm all groovy for the
Who are
parks,
you?
okay? The only thing,
Who are you?
excuse me?
Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Pamela Dancy, South Front Street.
Thank
I'm for parks because of children. I get all that. At the last CDC meeting, Mr. Petty had stated that he had gone over and talked to some of these, like Dow and so forth like this. And I would like to know the outcome of that. Apparently, they haven't committed. And I also always thought, and maybe I must be mistaken, that I thought the EDC money was supposed to be on something profitable. Okay? That when we give it, it's for restaurants, they bring money into the city. I wasn't sure if things have changed. I could be incorrect apparently I am incorrect about it. I always thought it was supposed to be profitable when we spend EDC money. So anyway, if Mr. Petty could answer my questions, it'd be great.
And thank you, ma'am. Yeah, go ahead. And then Mr. Petty.
Sure. I think the primary objective of EDCs was, at some point to encourage development that would bring jobs, primary jobs. But parks and other public infrastructure are permissible projects by the EDC, by statute.
Mr. Petty?
And we have met with Phillips 66 and LNG. We still have other ones scheduled.
All right. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Johnson? Oh, Ms. Oldham? Can I have Ms. Dancy's sheet, please? Thank you.
I'll fill this out. Melanie Oldham, 1206 West Broad. I just wanted to mention also, I know that the Brazoria County Petrochemical Council put money together and they built a new playground at Surfside, and it's all recyclable, really nice material. So I don't know if y'all have gone to talk to the Brazoria County Petrochemical. That way everybody hopefully will care about Freeport enough to put a little bit of money in, Phillips and Dow back here. So just a suggestion, and also talk to the governmental affairs people of each of these industries, because they are given a sum of money that they can spend each year on projects that would be good for like the city of Freeport.
That's right. Thank you, ma'am. Any further questions for Mr. Johnson? All right, thank you, sir. Continue on.
Mayor, I do. I was waiting to see if anybody
I'm
else.
sorry?
I do have some questions.
All right, we have some questions from Councilman Peanut.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
You had mentioned that there was $400,000 that was in the budget for the EDC that was earmarked for potential use on these park projects. And I'm just kind of trying to understand, how are you guys determining what thresholds need to be met, what requirements need to be met, so that in fact the $400,000 is either used or not used?
That'll be after we're finished. We'll evaluate that after we're finished talking to all the businesses and see how much money we have, and either have to scale the project back or obligate those funds.
Okay, I would just think that, so what you're just saying is that you're gonna make every effort to go out to private industry and get their governmental affairs, and for that matter, the city's money, and whatever's not supplementing the entirety of the project will be used, will the EDC monies will then be used?
Yes.
Wouldn't we-
Or we will scale the project back. We'll look at it.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
may have to scale some fencing back or scale one of the,
the sacred cow of do it for the kids is always great, and I can appreciate that. And I know that we talked about, there's a lot of things that come up on this, and I have 3 other questions, but I'll just say, I would like to see there being a decision matrix in advance so that it helps to determine whether or not we use this money for this parks. And I'm just curious, if it's not used for the parks, what would that $400,000 be used for? Would it just go back to the general fund
Yes.
for the EDC? All right, thank you. And and when I think about what you just said here and what Mr. Rollerson said about Peppermint Park, it almost seems like maybe we haven't really vetted which parks need what, and so the budget needs to be adjusted. And so I'd like to see if we can do that for
We
the next
went-
presentation.
we went to those parks and looked at the equipment. Myself and Mr. Kelty was still here at the time, and Lance all looked at each park and the state of the equipment, and it was bad.
The Peppermint Park toys were bad?
Yes.
Mr. Rollerson, please keep quiet. Thank you.
Yes.
So is it my understanding then that the toys that were put in, the equipment that was put in last year has a life expectancy of 1 year?
There hasn't been new equipment put in Peppermint Park since in the last 5 years.
Okay.
Yep.
What is the equipment that Mr. Rollerson is referring to?
You'd have to
There's-
ask Mr.
there's a-
Rollerson after the
Or
meeting.
if Mr. Petty can answer that question,
Well, you can also ask Mr. Rollerson after the meeting if you'd like.
I'd rather ask the expert,
Okay, well, I've been down there too. Am I an expert?
but a city official,
Okay,
unelected.
okay. unelected city official Lance Petty.
What's referred to as new, it's a newer playground structure that's down there. And we have had trouble getting parts for that thing. The slides have broken on it and things like that, and it's nearly impossible to get replacement parts for it. And the city had put in equipment throughout the city that were mismatched equipment, so it's very difficult to get the replacement parts for it.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. It jogs us another, just kind of another question to that point, are these proposals being solicited in terms of pricing and equipment from contractors or vendors that provide a one-stop solution so that we're not, scrambling for parts down the road?
That was part of the objective, was to get equipment that you can easily get parts to and have consistency so we don't have a bunch of different lines of equipment and try and chase all over to find parts.
And so that's been taken into consideration, so the pricing that we have is for toys and equipment that is already been vetted to be a one-stop shop. It has a life expectancy of how many years. Those are the things that I'm interested in, to making sure that if in fact any city tax dollars are being spent on any of these projects, that there's a return on our investment in terms of the value and the usability of it all.
Certainly.
And I like the idea that we have, you mentioned here, the naming rights. Certainly a lot of corporations will use their governmental affairs and to just have the naming rights, and for that matter, even private citizens who want their names on those parks to also be used. And I'm hoping to see what list of corporations and contacts that the EDC has already reached out to, and for that matter, what other organizations they've also reached out to that are not simply corporate, but as Ms. Oldham had described, the Brazoria County Petrochemical Company, or the Petrochemical Organization. I think they're probably a nonprofit, but they probably have monies there.
Right.
So I'm curious to make sure that, actually, I'm almost certain that there's more money out there. And I'm hoping that we can show that the EDC has done its due diligence in actually meeting with these organizations, with these corporations. We have plenty of them. They have a lot of industrial money, millions, if not billions of dollars. For that matter, even the port being asked to pitch in on here. They just had their taxes cut because they're very profitable, and so hopefully they would also want to contribute to this community and the families and the households to invite additional real estate, residential development, as well as commercial. That all said, I'm curious what your thoughts are, and in your own words, how is this particular project cultivating business development, if that is the primary purpose of the EDC?
Well, once again, in a Type B corporation can do quality of life projects, and this would fall squarely under the category of quality of life project. Having said that, it's been shown in studies that parks bring money to a community, make cities more livable, et cetera.
Thank you for that answer. I appreciate that answer. That makes sense to me in terms of what the Type Corp B or the Type B Corporation EDC structure actually allows for. But, I would want to push back again. I want to make sure that we lean on our corporate partners because this whole endeavor, which was driven by Mr. Matamoros, per your own words, was put forward to council last year as a corporate sponsored endeavor. And so I'd like to see it, in fact, do that here and come to fruition with those dollars versus public dollars, unless the council should decide that this is what we want to put our park monies to, and for that matter, do a budget adjustment for a parks department to actually do this versus the EDC funds. And I'd like to see the EDC not reach for the lowest bar to spend money to show that we're having some impact in the community. We have many tools at our disposal on the EDC. Money is one of them. But we have many other tools in terms of the relationships that we were supposed to forge with our corporate partners, with our nonprofit organizations, and I'd like to see that, and for that matter, even our private citizens. And I know the family for the Harrington Park there had promised previously to donate, I think it was $10,000 for the fence on the perimeter of that park, reaching back out to them so that they might want to contribute that or follow through with that. And I just think that I'm glad that we're talking about this. This is the feedback I hope that you guys will take into consideration. And let's see, I had another question here. Actually, I'll leave it at that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Number 2, proclamation of the City of Freeport declaring April 2024 Fair Housing Month. Kathy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Every year, the Council declares April as Fair Housing Month. It is also part of our compliance for our grant projects. It also meets HUD requirements for the city. So this proclamation would declare April as Fair Housing Month.
Very good. I will so sign the proclamation of April as a fair housing, and I'll sign it the February 20th, 2024. Thank you, ma'am. Item number 3, we'll go into the consent agenda. Item number 3 is consideration and possible action on the approval of City Council meeting minutes from February 5th, 2024, and City Council workshop minutes from February 12th, 2024. And item number 4, consideration and possible action on the approval of road closures for the Spring Festival hosted by Outriggers on March 9th, 2024. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Councilman Matamoros to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried unanimously, 5-0. Thank you. Council business regular session, consideration and possible action on approving resolution number 2024-2837, update on Brasport Water Supply Corporation Reservoir and resolution supporting the project. Mr. Petty.
Yes, sir, and BWA is here tonight, and Mr. Kenny Hayes is as well. Just a background on it, BWA has filed an application for financial assistance under the Texas Water Development Fund for an amount not to exceed $2,500,000, and has filed in a bridge application under the State Water Implementation Fund for the Texas SWIFT Fund. The city recommends support for the Brazos Water Supply Corporation Reservoir Project. Mr. Hayes is here and BWA is here to address any concerns.
I don't have any concern. I appreciate y'all being here, but I understand that it's something that needs to be done, so I will move that we approve this resolution. Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
I have a second from Councilman Matamoros. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Item number 6, consideration and possible action to approve a construction contract. Sir?
We don't have no citizens comment concerning this.
Yes, we don't. So,
I'm asking you a question because we should be, as citizens that have to consume this water, and I buy water, and there's a big news article out by the Houston Landing about Brasport Water Authority. And you sat here and you ran that bill, you ran that through there, and you know that's out there because land's featured in that. So this, you making a decision without the citizens behind this about the water. This is our life, Mr. Mayor, that you playing with these people. You need to do better than Mr. Mayor. You just rushed that through there without the input of the citizens. That's what you just did.
yep,
And you think that's right?
yep,
And you're right about that.
yep.
Right.
You know, I drink the water every day, Manny.
Mr.
I drink the water. I drink the water every day, sir.
I don't drink the water because it makes my children sick, Mr. Mayor.
Well, that's too bad.
It's too bad that our kids die from the water, Mr. Mayor.
Can we have,
Is
Chief,
it too bad?
would you escort
No,
Mr.
she
Rogan?
ain't gonna escort
No,
me.
she's
I'm
going to
gonna
escort
have
you.
I
She's going
have
to
a constitutional right to speak. You are elected by the people. I am going to speak. You're going to listen. No,
Bye-bye.
he's going to listen.
No, I'm
I
not.
have a right to speak.
No, I don't.
You're gonna listen.
No, you
My
don't.
children is
No,
dying
you
in this
don't.
community from this water.
Manning?
Mr. Mayor, you the pitiful most person in the world.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
My children dying around here from the water.
Thank
You
you.
think what you're saying is right?
Yep, I do. I do.
Pitiful individual, Mayor Bass.
Thank you, sir. Have a good night.
No, you have a good night.
I will. Thank you. All right.
So-called Christian.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, you right.
Mayor, the vote was 4-1.
Pardon me?
The vote was 4-1.
I didn't hear your nay, and so I counted it as a unanimous vote, so 5-0. So thank you.
Well, for the record.
Well, for the record, you're a little late. Item number 6, consideration and possible action to approve a construction contract with Wharton
It'll be in
Smith,
the minutes.
Inc. for the CDBG MIT 22-085-047-D300 for $13,744,500, authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents. Ms. Ezell.
Okay, thank you.
The city of Freeport went out for bids on the wastewater treatment plant renovations, and Wharton Smith was the lowest bidder, with the total renovations costing $13,744,500. The city is awarding the entire contract per the requirements of the GLO grant. We applied for this grant a while back, and we had $4.9 million in construction. We are short $8,794,500. Per the GLO regulations, we have to approve the contract in its entire amount.
Well, okay, so it definitely more than doubled?
Yes, sir.
About 20% above our original estimate?
Yes, sir. That is what we are finding on a lot of the construction projects. We are not the only city in this position. We have written a letter to the GLO, not only the city of Freeport, but also Friesen Nichols, the engineer of the project, to request additional funding.
Councilman Pena, can you turn your phone off, please, or
Yeah,
at least
I'm going to mute it.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, ma'am.
Because of the fact that we are not the only city in this position, that some cities are not doing the projects because they cannot come up with the additional funding, and there may be additional funding on the table. We have already submitted those 2 letters to the GLO.
All right. Well, this is not a tough one. It has to be done. Our wastewater treatment plant is sufficiently deficient that we have been lucky
Yes,
for the
sir.
last few years in regards to the folks up in Austin, and it has to be done. And we have the money. I would rather use the $8.8 million for other projects, but
Yes, sir.
I can think of no project greater than securing the wastewater treatment plant where all the wastewater goes.
That is where Mr. Petty and I stand as well. We've discussed this at length and felt that the use of those funds were pertinent in this instance to get this to wastewater treatment plant back up and running.
Yep. All right, very good. Ma'am? Oh, Ms. Odom? I didn't ever got your form, Melanie. There you go, thank you.
Melanie Oldham. I know we've been for, seems like years and years talking about fixing that wastewater treatment plant, and you're right, it needs to be done. But what I wasn't clear was, of the 8.8 million, is any of that the money from the selling of the East End Park and the right-of-ways? Because we
Yes.
thought that was going to the infrastructure for our new subdivision.
Yep, that's most, if not all of it, will be coming from the money from the East End sale of the property to the Port of Freeport.
When you did a contract with the port, it wasn't designated for our new
No, ma'am.
infrastructure?
No,
It just,
we have.
whatever
we have
y'all
to-
chose to use
We
it
have to
for?
have the, sorry for interrupting, we have to have the park put in there, but other than that, it was undesignated
That and the $1.2 million for the lift
for the lift station. That's
Those are
correct.
the only 2 caveats to.
Well, disappointing. that-
Disappointing, very disappointing, but you know, we've got to have the wastewater treatment plant, because if the state of Texas comes down upon us, then well, it's not good. So, all right, questions for Kathy?
On this bid of the 13,744,500, whenever we looked at this the last time, whenever we changed the scope, there was one with the electronics in just a panel and one with the electronics in a room.
At this time, we are still working through that to create a possible change order to submit to the GLO. There is a possibility for a change order with those respects. It will have to go through the process to be approved by the GLO, but in order to move this forward the way the GLO and HUD especially, we have to award the contract in entirety and then submit an application for a change order after the fact. That is what we are going to do, possibly. We are allowed to submit a possible change order to the GLO that does not decrease the scope of the project by 25%. We've come up with alternatives, and we know possibly which route we are going to request the change order in.
I will make a motion that we approve the construction contract of Wharton Smith for the CDBG MIT bid for $13,744,500.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a couple of questions
Yes,
if nobody else does.
Go ahead, sir.
Ms. Ezell, the 25% savings, what are we losing in terms of infrastructure to this project?
At this time, we are not exactly, we haven't come up with the full scope. It would not be jeopardizing what this project was. It's pretty much all of this project. It's just changing possibly, instead of being the panels enclosed in a building, they're gonna be outside. We're still going to do most of the work. It's just scaling back on some of the electronics possibly. It's not going to change the package plant.
Yep.
And it's not gonna change the feeding system to the package plant or the electricity to the package plant or the chlorination system to the package plant. It's not going to change any of that.
All of the big ticket items.
No, it's not gonna change the big ticket items. What it could possibly change is what happened is Freeze and Nichols, when they engineered it, we have a second phase of renovations to wastewater treatment plant number 2. Part of what they did is some of the electrical work that is slated for phase 2, they wrapped it up in phase 1. So that's the only difference. It won't be any difference to the original phase 1. It's just gonna be part of possibly the electrical that was considered phase 2, then they were gonna try to wrap it into this one.
Thank you for that answer. I'm just trying to understand, get a real clear understanding here before I can vote to approve this in terms of, the big ticket items, quote unquote. I don't know if we're buying a car, everybody understands, hey, we want that anti-lock brake system. We want to have seat belts. We want to have the airbags. We want to have all the safety measures. And I want to make sure that we have all of those, number one.
Mr. Hunn with Freeze and Nichols, the big ticket item is the actual package plant. It's part of the plant, and he can explain that
Appreciate
cost breakdown.
Thank you.
Yeah, David Hunn with Freeze and Nichols. And earlier we talked about value engineering, taking out the chemical system and using the existing system. It was decided that that was taking out too much. We really need the new chemical system. So, I mean, really all we're looking to change is to get rid of the building. We had the electrical equipment in a building. We're moving the electrical equipment specific to the new plant closer to the plant rather than having before we were having a new building that served both the new plant and the old trickling filter plant. We just scaled that back to get this, to help get this within budget, but we've, everything else is essential. And like I said, at one point we looked at not replacing the chemical system, and talking to Lance and everyone, we agree that it's the right decision to include that, although it kind of reduces the savings we were initially looking at.
Thank you. Well, let me ask you this here, I want to make sure that we're not compromising safety or functionality with this approach. In your estimation, your engineering expertise, are we?
Right. We are not compromising
Safety or functionality?
Or functionality, no, sir.
Because, again, I'm going to go back to my automobile analogy here. We have, the LS package or the DX package. Are we looking at the DX package?
We're, on the electrical side, yes. I mean, it's, I would compare electrical equipment. It's like, parking your car in a garage versus under a carport. With this, we've gone from a garage to a carport would be the analogy I would use for the electrical.
I got you. And so it's literally going to be under a carport, or will have its own housing?
Yeah, it'll be inside, weatherproof panels on a slab with a canopy over it, rather than being in an enclosed building.
And without doing any reverse algebra, what's the total amount of that 25%?
I see, and we're not realizing the full, but 25%, but the 25% is a cap, which is 3 million. Let's see what exactly that number is. I have it here. Yeah, thank you. It's just 20% of our 13,744,500.
So we're looking at about 3.4 million? No. No.
No, that's the cap that, if we got to the 25%, we would be compromising safety and operations.
Oh, I see.
So we're just limited. We cannot exceed 25% per GLO rules, but we're well below that.
In terms of this 13.744, that'll give us the wastewater treatment plant that we need, that'll serve not only the community as it is in its size and capacity now, but is there room for growth? Because we keep talking about putting in this infrastructure for parks, infrastructure for sewer and streets and everything else, but we got to make sure that it's also going to be there for the growth that we're hoping and planning for and we're spending money on.
It's not expanding your current capacity. It doesn't enlarge your permit. Right now, though, you're well under your permitted flow. I mean, right now, the trickling filter plant is not operational, and that's 0.6 MGD of your total 2.25 MGD. So, but these improvements are just to bring the plant up to a good operating condition. It's not a permit amendment. We're not building additional capacity. We're replacing current capacity.
And current capacity can include additional capacity.
Right. You're under. Yes, you're not bumping up against your capacity, and I don't know those exact numbers, but we're.
Thank you, sir.
Well, so that's a very interesting point, right? So if we are saying, hey, right now, we're actually only utilizing 40% of our potential capacity, well, that's great, right? Because then there's room for growth. But if we're over here butting up at 75 or 80% of our capacity, well, that's not really very good if we're going to replace that. It doesn't really allow us or afford us much growth, especially if we're trying to do those 9 city blocks of residential development over there on the OA Fleming space. And for that matter, any of the other infill development that we're also trying to promote with the 25-foot lots and so on and so on. But I will say that, it's very important to understand that we understand this collectively, because this is very important. This is why Manny Rollerson got kicked out of here, because these are the issues that matter most. It's our wastewater. It's our water that we drink. People, since I've been here, I haven't been here 50 plus years, but it just took me to be here 6 or 7 years for people to tell me, hey man, sewer's coming up my sink, sewer's coming out of my tub. So I completely agree that this is very important, but I'm just trying to understand, where do we go from here and where are we really? And I want to make sure that the residents are aware that, hey, all we're really doing is fixing the current problem, but it doesn't afford us the ability to grow. Or if we have some room for growth, I'd like some numbers to that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if you're able to provide any kind of sense of that.
I don't have that offhand. The grant money required us to replace in kind, so the grant money wouldn't have applied for betterment, in other words, building a larger plant. And we talked about that at the time we did the funds. We talked about building a concrete plant, different options there, but the grant money was just for in kind for storm mitigation, replacement of.
Lance, do you have anything you can add on that in regards to increased infrastructure for usage of the replacement wastewater treatment plant?
Yes, sir. Like Mr. Hunt said, currently, we're not bumping up close to capacity of the plant, and the trickling filter's not in service, which is an additional 600,000 gallons a day. So when that trickling filter's put back in, you're basically utilizing the 600,000 gallons of that trickling filter that you didn't have prior to the improvements. So as far as us getting close to the permit requirements, we're not going to be close to it right now, and we can handle more development.
Thank you, sir.
The last question I have, Mr. Hunt, and thank you for answering these questions, and thank you for that, Mr. Petty. This project, if kicked off, I'm just kind of wondering, I want to make sure that we're not painting ourselves in a corner, right? So we kick off this project, it goes to completion. What's the timetable on this again?
It will get underway, have a construction kickoff meeting end of April. We're looking at a year of construction, so we'll be wrapping this up around April, May of next year.
25? So by summer of 2025, the city of Freeport sewer system should be up to code, brand new.
Well,
Except for all the lines running through it that have not replaced, but yes.
We'll replace the package plant. Now, the old trickling filter plant, which is 0.6 MGD of your total, the new package plant's 1.6 MGD, and the package plant's 0.6, so it's 0.65 for a total of 2.25 MGD. So we're totally replacing the package plant at 1.6 million gallons a day. I should define that. And but the trickling filter plant is still inoperable, and that's the second package is to go back and repair it. So
this is just the first phase, first package that we're trying to take care of.
Correct.
So this leads me to my last question, and I think there's other citizens that want to ask some questions. I want to make sure that what we're trying to do here is not only fix what's broken, but I want to make sure that we don't paint ourselves in a corner. Will these repairs, these $13.7 million, allow us for the system, the new system, to be expanded upon, either modularly or otherwise? Or are we painting ourselves in a corner that we'd have to go out and spend $20 million the next time and scrap this one?
I mean,
just to fit the demand of future development.
The funds were for replacement in kind, so it's the plant itself is not modular. Your plant by design is modular in that you have two plants, but this one is standalone. I mean, there's no design provisions the money was to replace the circular tank you have, and it's a self-contained unit.
So no availability or no, the scope of the project was never to look at it to expand it?
Correct.
All right, thank you. No further questions, except I think the residents did, sorry, Mayor.
Because the scope of the project already included additional expansion because we weren't using what we're supposed to be using. Is that correct, sir?
Well, right, I don't know if I can call that expansion, but yes, once you get the trickling filter back up, I mean, you'll have an additional 0.6 MGD
Yes,
of
sir.
capacity that hadn't been
Thank
used
you.
in a while.
Anybody out in the audience? Yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
I just have to say this real quick. I know we have one of our port commissioners here. Port Freeport, their tenants for decades have used our wastewater treatment plant. And I know in negotiations over and over, they've been asked to put in some money on this wastewater treatment plant. If Port Freeport wants to start being a good neighbor and improve their ESG, environmental, social governance score, this would be a time to do it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good comment. Any
All
chance
right,
we might be able to get a
anything else?
comment from the port or any kind of commitment from them between now and the time we actually kick it off?
Well, I'm sure they can come up here and talk whenever they want to. So, anybody else, council, want to make any comments?
That's a good comment by Ms. Oldham. Very good question.
Any further comments from any council members?
I just want to make a couple of comments real quick.
Okay.
First comment is I'd like to thank Mr. Petty for explaining all of this in our workshop that we had,
Yes.
which made it a lot easier to understand. Second comment that I want to make is when we agreed to the port settlement, we wanted to better our infrastructure. This is a way that we're going to better our infrastructure. Yeah, we all had different ideas of how to better that infrastructure, but this is our most pressing need, and thus that's why we're going to utilize the funds not already allocated for projects for this infrastructure. So I just want it to be known that, hey, we are saying that we're living up to our words, that we are using this for infrastructure.
All right, anybody else? If not, I will call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 7, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2838, amending the City of Freeport Policy Handbook, Chapter 3, Employee Appointments, revising Section 3.03, application process. Ms. Donna Fisher.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
We are asking council to authorize a revision of the application process and the policy manual to allow current employees to apply for a promotion or a transfer before a position is advertised to the general public.
All right. Anybody have any comments?
I do, Mayor.
Go ahead, sir.
Ms. Fisher, this particular document here has, or this resolution here, has this already been reviewed and approved by Olson and Olson?
Yes, Brian Bagley at Olson and Olson went over the policy and, in fact, made a revision to my revision, so, yes.
Thank you. I know we're trying to change the personnel policy to give preference to city employees to open positions, and I think that that's a good idea in certain circumstances and not such a good idea in other circumstances. The memo says that currently we must advertise a position before they can provide someone those positions, right? For the police department and the fire department.
Yes.
But the actual policy says that they take applications from employees for 5 days, and if nobody applies internally, then they open it up to the public.
Right. Or if none of the applicants are qualified, it would also be opened up to the public. That was the revision that is not in your red line copy, but is in the final copy. That was
So
made-
do we have a
Brian
copy
Bagley
of the final copy?
made. It should be in your packet.
Okay, I'll double check that again.
The way the final copy reads, if no current city employee applies for the position, or if no current city employee meets the minimum qualifications, then it is opened up to the public.
I guess said a different way is like, I don't have a problem with this. I think it's a good idea, maybe in the police department and the fire departments. But in the rest of City Hall, I think it can pose a lot of problems. You know, you get somebody who is an admin, and then all of a sudden, no one's, the position for assistant city manager becomes open, and then they can just step in and apply for it.
They would have to meet the minimum qualifications.
And they would have to be hired.
Well, that's just it. I would want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a position where an employee can say, hey, listen, I thought I was qualified, and then we have a lawsuit on our hands because we didn't hire them. So I'm just wondering if we can amend the language such that it gives the city more flexibility literally, in the language of the memo that doesn't hard line stipulate that we need to grant it to the employees, but that.
The policy doesn't say that. They can apply in advance, but then after 5 days, if either the department director feels that they're not qualified, or if no one applies and they decide to apply after the 5 days, it's open to the general public. It's letting them apply in advance is not a guarantee of a position. It's just an advanced chance to get their application in. And if-
Again, I'm just trying to make sure that we don't open ourselves up to any kind of liability. And so I wanted to ask Mr. Olson if he had a chance to review this himself and if he saw that there was any kind of discrepancy or conflict language that might put the city at a legal disadvantage.
I have reviewed it, and I've talked to Brian about this, and no way does this create a property interest in a potential job. It just essentially gives somebody in-house the opportunity to submit their application, but in no way gives them any kind of rights or obligates the city in any way to hire that individual.
So if somebody's underqualified, just
They could be absolutely qualified for the position. It's still discretionary upon whoever's hiring for that position, whether they want to hire that person, just
So-
like any other applicant.
so in the case, let's just say it's a lifeguard, just to kind of really.
Let's just say it's a what?
A lifeguard employee.
Lifeguard, okay.
And they want to basically be employed as the assistant city manager. And so, or the parks director. And the city manager says, you know what, I like this person. They're not qualified, but I'm going to hire them. And I want to make sure that we protect the city in terms of the residents and the taxpayers to making sure that we don't have systems in our ordinances and our resolutions and how we hire that are going to allow for either some political hiring, some nepotism hiring, or otherwise, but such that we're always hiring for the most qualified person.
Well, it requires 4 signatures, basically, for someone to be hired: the department director, myself, the finance director, and the city manager.
Yeah, but you could all be, nepotist, right?
Well,
At the end of the day, this doesn't change the way people
No,
are hired
It doesn't.
at all. It just,
We have nepotism rules.
Yes.
And so, good Lord.
Well,
it
again-
really only changes the way people in-house can apply for the position. But as far as consideration and ultimate hiring for that position, doesn't change a thing.
I would hope not.
Very good. I will call the question then. Well, actually, I can't call the question.
I'm
I
going to
don't have
make a motion, Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion from Councilman Matamoros to approve, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Is there a second?
No, I'm a second it,
And we
Mayor.
have a Councilman Kane is a second. No further discussion is necessary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
4-1.
Very
Councilman
concerned.
Pena is a nay.
Very
With
concerned.
whatever else he said afterwards, I can't hear him.
Very concerned.
Very concerned. Very good. Your concern is noted. Number 8, Carla Clark, you would like first reading of resolution number 2024-2839 for consideration for the demolishing of the building located at 208 West Park Avenue. Carla, you wanted to talk on this? I think. Yes, ma'am.
Carla Clark, 411 Sailfish. As I went down in the area on Park Drive Street, whatever, how many of those places down there are up for sale, for rent, for lease? And you have 3 buildings there all together, and the one that is being, I guess, projected to be torn down, if I'm not mistaken, the 3 that the EDC owns are right there together. Are any of those buildings habitable, or would it be better to just tear down the 3 of them? And I know the cost in here is quite a bit for tearing down, and I understand that that's a lot of what to dispose of things is a lot of what you are charged with. Building, well, it used to be cheaper than actually tearing down to dispose of the property. But, I mean, I don't see, nobody's shown any interest, and this may be for Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
In those properties, and I know he stated that he's gone to TML things or whatever, it's not TML, but their
Yes, ma'am.
shows, and, I mean, I don't know, it's,
Understood. Mr. Johnson, can you explain or answer Mrs. Clark's questions, please?
The 2 buildings, 212 and 210 West Park, are in fine condition. Well, I shouldn't say fine. They're in condition to be refurbished and maintained. I would also caution against demolishing buildings that are extant from a historic preservation Main Street perspective. Those buildings are perfectly fine, but 208 is falling in on itself and is a safety hazard at this point.
Well, I'd
and-
I'd like to see it torn down, and maybe you get somebody in there that has a restaurant with an open-air plaza next to it. I mean, I
Well,
think that'd be kinda cool.
I won't call the name, but I do have a prospect right now very carefully considering 212.
Okay. All right. Ms. Clark, that answer your question? All right.
I mean, yeah, if you've got people interested, that's what I was wondering.
Yes, ma'am. All
I
right.
just showed that building today, 212.
All right.
I won't call the name of the person that I.
Sure, I understand. Council, do you have any further questions for Mr. Johnson about, this is just a first reading. This is not actual taking action on a resolution.
Yeah, I actually have some questions, Mayor.
Actually, let me do this first, Councilman Pena, before you do that. Let me read the resolution. Resolution number 2024-2838, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Freeport, Texas, revising Section 303 application process, improving this revision to the personal,
Wrong place.
wrong place. Let me read this resolution. A resolution of the Freeport Economic Development Corporation authorizing and approving the demolition of a property located at 208 West Park, Freeport, Texas, 77501, to be performed by the Turboville Construction LLC, containing other provisions relating to the subject and providing for severability. Mr. Pena.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, you know, a couple of weeks ago, if not a couple of months ago, or earlier this year, we had you standing here before the council and asking us to approve yet another study for one of the, I guess, Main Street experts out of UTSA.
Yes.
And what was that amount that we approved, do you recall?
Can you say that again?
What was the amount for that particular research that was going to be done again?
The study without the
Study.
design guidelines was 30,000.
And what was it with the design?
With the design guidelines, it was 70.
I think we approved the full 70, if
Yes.
I'm not mistaken. And so I can tell you,
The EDC's covering 30, though.
right, I still see it as taxpayer money. And so I want to make sure that I talk to that point, in that, you know, we have the EDC money, and the EDC money is not a slush fund where we just go willy-nilly breaking the rules here or there, or get really aggressive with the rules and push them so that we can just get these little pet projects. And I'm okay with pet projects, that's the thing. I'm actually okay with some pet projects that make sense to the overarching goal of the city's push for growth, for development, and vibrancy. You know, we need to start doing things differently. But here's the thing. If we decided to pay, and this is what I thought we voted on, was to allow UTSA to do a study to help us to understand what's the best strategy going forward. Why are we tearing down buildings before they've even come back with their response? We might as well go ahead and say, hey, stop, hold that check. We're going to go ahead and do whatever we want and how we see fit. How are we making these decisions if we're trying to say, hey, we don't know, we're not the experts on this, so we've hired experts, yet we're still making decisions that we're paying these experts to help us make? Can you help explain that to me, please?
In our pre-study meetings that we've had a considerable amount of them, myself and Anna. We've discussed this building with Dr. Ian Kane from UTSA. We've also brought it to the attention of the Main Street program in Austin. This building is a safety hazard, needs to come down. I can assure you, I'm loath to tear down any building with my historic preservation background. But this one absolutely needs to come down before it comes down upon somebody.
Thank you, sir.
That particular building, and I know this building well because I know that we had various contractors look at it. Now, did you guys have any engineers look at this here recently?
Yes.
Okay, because I thought last year the EDC was getting bids on actually remodeling those, and they were getting engineering reports as well.
We did. We had, in this round of contractors that we submitted bids, we had them for 208 specifically, we had them submit a bid for demolition and a bid for refurbishment. And we wanted to compare the two. The refurbishment was astronomical.
Yeah. Do you have a number on what that refurbishment was going to be?
I'm sorry, I didn't bring it with me
Okay.
tonight. I can get that to you, though.
And that's actually not part of the consideration for the demolishing of the building located at 208 West Park Avenue, but continue. Go ahead, sir.
So what's germane to my question here is, in terms of this particular topic, is the structure. You're saying that it's unsafe. Do we have any literature that says that it's unsafe? Because here's the deal. 2.5 years ago, we had various contractors come forward that provided estimates to refurbish the whole 3 buildings that the EDC owned, all 3 of them. That included the roof, that included the front facades, that included the bathrooms and the kitchens that were going to be used and planned for those spaces. What it didn't include, however, was the alley and the infrastructure the city would end up having to fix to make sure that those particular buildings would not get flooded at the next rainstorm. So what's crazy to me is that, you know, it's almost like it's whatever the engineers we tell them to tell us, they will say. Sometimes the lawyers will do the same thing. And so I'm thinking, okay, are we telling these guys, hey, just tell us what it's going to take it down?
Mr. Johnson, did you tell the engineers to have this building torn down?
No,
Well,
I didn't.
that's
Mr.
not what I'm
Johnson-
asking.
Mr. Johnson,
That-
did the engineers come forth and say that this building needed to come down because it was unsafe?
No. I'm sorry, the engineers did come forth and say that it needed to come down because it was unsafe.
Okay,
I'd be very interested in seeing that report at the next reading, if possible.
that'll be fine. I think it needs to be brought forth.
Sure. Because here's what's interesting is that, you know, there's been a lot of subjectivity in terms of what buildings need to be torn down. And, you know, I'm with you on this. I don't see why any building in downtown needs to be torn down that is structurally sound. And I can tell you, the construction company that was looking at that space, the 208, had evaluated the roof structure, and they basically said, hey, all we have to do is replace all of these trusses, and they gave us that price, and it was in that $300,000. And the thing about the imploding.
What price did they give you?
Pardon?
What price did they give you?
I can forward you that estimate, but I want to say it was close to about $360,000. Number
Yeah.
one.
Well-
But what I'm going with this, is that you're saying that particular structure is unsound, but I had never heard any of those conversations from any of the other contractors and engineers that had been there to see the space in itself.
And Councilman Pena, what, did you say it was 2.5 years ago that they looked at it?
Maybe 2 years ago.
Maybe 2 years ago.
But I also know last year, there was a set of contractors that looked at it too, and their whole, and this is why I framed the narrative the way I did, is that they were looking at that space in the posture of, hey, how do we save this? Hey, how do we make this happen? Nobody came out categorically saying, oh no, the sky's falling on this, run for the hills, don't even get near the sidewalk because this might fall on you. Nobody said any of that.
Yeah, but
And
did
in
they
fact,
say it was gonna be
there were some
300?
beams sticking out about 7 feet long,
Yeah.
and the city required them to shave those off because they were cantilevered over the sidewalk.
Did they also say, I mean, was the cost $360,000 at that time too, or is that 2 years ago? Or did
Well-
they give an idea of the cost?
Well, my point is that I don't think it's doubled or tripled. I would hope not.
Yeah.
I've seen math like that before, but I will say this, is
Well,
that,
just look at our wastewater treatment plant that went from 5 million to 13 million
Correct.
in 2 years.
so, you know, different technologies, that's a whole nother subtopic. I'll just say this, is that, you know, I'm just concerned that we're framing this building as being unsafe when in fact it can be preserved. And when I look at this roof, and the conversations that were had then were simply just replace these beams, you're fine. There was never any circumstance or any conversation about, mind you, 208 shares a wall with 210, okay? So if you take out this wall or this roof, the wall can easily fall over into 208. Same thing with White's Cafe. If you take off those supports, it might also potentially fall over into the 208 space. And now we have another problem because now we've compromised the structural integrity of 210. So, you know, there's all these questions of like, okay, are we going to demolish this and how are we going to have these supports on these walls? And there's a lot of questions here that I'm thinking maybe those questions are going to be answered later, but the first question is it really unsafe? Is it really unsalvageable? And the answer before was always categorically, it's salvageable. And so I'm just curious why, you know, we're leaning on this to let's demolish buildings. we're trying to preserve buildings. We're trying to preserve the theater, the pharmacy, the bank buildings, heck, even City Hall.
Has the theater had its roof worked on yet, or has it still got a big giant gaping hole?
I'm not familiar with the status of that particular project is at this
Okay.
moment.
All right, well, let me do this. We've had the first reading. Mr. Johnson, you have a lot of homework to do. I would like to see the engineer's report as well.
Okay.
If they don't have one, get one, but I'm sure they have something. Mr. Councilman Pena has some legitimate questions, and I think, you need to be ready at the next reading.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Item number 9, consideration and possible action on approval of individual project order number 1, Kimley Horn East End Lift Station relocation. Lance Petty.
Yes, sir. The Freeport City Council authorized entering into an agreement with Kimberly Horn to serve as the city's engineer. The attached IPO, individual project order number 1, is for the relocation of the East End lift station and relocation of the water transmission line. Relocation of this lift station and water main is required per the agreement with Port Freeport for the acquisition of the East End property. Once this is approved here and they've done all the engineering on it, we'll bring back, we'll have to bid out the project and everything like that once engineering is complete on it and bring it back to y'all for approval. The engineering cost for the sewer and the water, I believe was $360,000.
But it has to be done, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's have a motion in format, and then we'll have discussion. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion approved by Councilman Kane. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Rosso. Discussion on this approval of individual project order number 1. It's one of those things we're just going to have to bite the bullet on.
I have a question. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
So the 360,000 is strictly for the engineering, but not the actual cost of the structure, right?
No, that's correct.
Correct.
And so what do we anticipate that total cost being for the 360? I mean, for
1.2.
the
Hopefully less than 1.2, but yes, 1.2 is what has been anticipated for quite a while, but that's, anyway, yes, but the wastewater treatment plant exploded too, so we'll see.
Well, I'll just say this, is that I'm really glad that when we were having these negotiations with the port, that we didn't take the offer that was being passed around for $400,000 in a baseball field, and that we in fact held to our guns so that we could get the $8.9 million and potentially even more. But I would just say I'm glad that we had the opportunity to force the port's hand to give the city of Freeport a decent amount of money for the East End. I'm not sure that it was the full value, but I'm hoping that those monies get well spent in a timely manner. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
And Councilman Pena, we appreciate everything that you did in those negotiations. Thank you, sir. Okay, any further discussion on this? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 10, consideration and possible action approving the interlocal cooperation contract between the Department of Public Safety of the State of Texas, an agency of the State of Texas, and the City of Freeport Court. Kathy.
Due to changes occurring in the 88th legislative session, the DPS revised the failure to appear contract. The following changes have been made to the contract. Changes in the language and restructuring of the original interlocal cooperation contract to provide clarity regarding the specific responsibilities held by each party. Inclusion of the indigency into the program as mandated under House Bill 291, 88th legislative session. Language to account for the future changes to the current statute, either federal or state, ensuring that the ICC remains in compliance with the latest legal requirements until the revised ICC is available. Basically, what this is a contract between the city municipal court and the state of Texas that allows us to put a driver's license hold on those people who have failed to appear in court. if they haven't appeared, we release the information to DPS. They put a hold on their license and they can't renew their license. They have to come clear up their court fines and fees before we can pull the hold off their driver's license. And this came from the state of Texas, and staff is recommending approval so that we can continue that
I
program.
understand, but it's something that's necessary, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Absolutely housekeeping.
With that, I'll make the motion to approve item number 10, the interlocal cooperation contract between DPS and the City of Freeport Court.
I'll second it.
Sorry?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you. We have a second from Councilman Pena. No further discussion is necessary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carried. Number 11, consideration of possible action to adopt Resolution 2024-2840 to designate and authorize signatories for the Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Program, General Land Office, State Contract 24-065-007-E164.
What this resolution does is it sets up the signatories for the new grant for the water pumping station. We have to go through this with every grant, and this resolution sets up those signatories. And it is required per
All
the
right.
grant.
I will make the motion to approve resolution number 2024-2840. Is there a second?
I second it, Mayor.
I have a second from Councilman Kane. Any further discussion necessary? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Item number 12, consideration of possible action approving the lead and copper field service line verification agreement with Amerisco. Lance Petty.
Yes, sir. This request is for approval of the required lead and copper field service line verification in the amount of $225,000 with Amerisco per the EPA TCEQ requirements with a submittal deadline of October the 16th, 2024. Amerisco is part of the cooperative purchasing program that does not require advertising for services through a bid process. The project will be funded by additional revenue from bulk water sales. To date, the city currently has $273,389 to allocate from the additional revenue to fund this project. The city did, I will state, the city did advertise this project, and it came in, one was at $3 million and one was $166,000. The gentleman that, the contractor that bid the $166,000, he did give us a call and questioned his bid. It'd be the first time he completed this project, and so we didn't accept those bids. And Amerisco, like I say, they do these projects all the time, and we presented this in our workshop as well.
Lance, would you please tell the public what it means by line
Verification?
verification?
Yeah, per the state requirements, you have to verify all of your lead. If you got any lead or copper lines, is what they do is they come out in every single meter box that we have. They'll clean it out. They'll dig out both sides of the meter box and verify the type of service that they have. They'll take photographs of all that. We have an app that's downloaded into our system. They'll download all that into the apps and send over to the engineer. Once it's complete, then the engineer sends it over to TCEQ for verification.
And what are they verifying?
Lead and copper lines.
All right, and what if we have them?
Then we'll be required to issue notices to the homeowners, and we'll also be required to come up with a replacement plan.
And how much is that going to cost?
Couldn't tell you.
You don't want to tell me right now. Well, I won't know in 5-week meetings anyway, so it'll be up to the rest of council.
I've got one question to add on top of that.
Yes, sir.
In the replacement lines, the city is required to replace up to the meter or to the house?
On the private side, you have to go all the way to the house.
So let's hope there's a lot of PVC out there. So with that, I'll entertain a motion. I'll make the motion to approve the lead and copper field service line verification agreement with Amerisco. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
All right. Any further discussion necessary?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I thought at the workshop that that Amoresco was going to do a sampling firstly before actually.
Sampling is going to be on the water meters. That was what they were going to do.
All right.
That was the project plan that we were talking about with the water meters, where they would do a sampling of 69
Yes.
meters. Yeah.
And they can't do a sampling on days?
No, because there's right at 3,500. That's got to be tested.
And we discarded the other two bids because,
One was 3 million and the other one was 166, and that contractor didn't want to do it for 166. He realized he didn't bid that correctly.
they underbid it?
Yes.
How would he know that?
Because he, going off the bid that he went against
Mm-hmm.
in the advertisement, and this would have been his first project to do a job like this, so he didn't, there was a lot of unknowns for him.
All right. Thank you.
All right, any further questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carried 4-1. Councilman Pena is a nay. Item number 13, consideration of possible action approving Freeport EMS and BISD affiliation agreement for unpaid work-based learning. Chief Motley.
Evening, Mayor and Council.
Evening.
In your packet, I provide a copy of the affiliation agreement, basically recommending to approve the Freeport Fire and EMS and BISD affiliation agreement for unpaid work-based learning agreement with the school district. And also my recommendation is for the chief to authorize to sign that. Basically, the affiliation agreement is supporting a new program Brazosport Independent School District has started teaching pre-hospital care for emergency medical technicians, which EMTs, that's our beginning level.
That's a good thing.
There's a shortage of over 70,000 EMTs, so they're addressing that in the workforce through their program. It allows a high school student to test now to registry for their EMT license so they can work anywhere in the U.S. And then they'll, once they get the national register, they're able to transfer to the state licensing DSHS to be able to practice here locally as part of the program. A student licensed as an EMT can continue their education through an advanced EMT, which y'all have seen some of that here, recognizes our employees of the month, and even all the way to paramedics. So it's like an apprenticeship. As you increase up the scope of the medical training, you're able to perform more skills in the field. In order for the EMT student to complete their certification, EMT student has to work in a clinical setting on an ambulance and in a hospital. The program provided by BISD must have an affiliation agreement for the students to complete the in-field clinical settings. Freeport Fire and EMS is able to provide this portion of the agreement to BISD. It already does it for Brazosport College for their EMT program. An EMT student must complete at least 48 hours of EMS clinical rotations with at least
24 hours hospital.
24 hours hospital and the rest of it on the ambulance, and at least 3 types of calls. So
Chief, I'm going to make the motion to approve the Freeport Fire EMS and BISD affiliation agreement for unpaid work-based learning with pleasure, but I'm also going to include it that it authorizes you to sign as well.
Yes, sir.
So I'm making one motion. So do I have a second?
I'll second your motion, Mayor.
A second from Councilman Matamoros. Do we need any further discussion?
I've got one question.
Yes, sir.
I'm in full support of this program, but I want to make sure, are our students in Brazosport able to be on this, in this program? At Brazosport?
it's who's been accepted in the program. I don't know any details past this affiliation agreement. But we can have that strong discussion as well.
Because I want to make sure that our students here are afforded the same as the students in other schools in the BISD.
I'll address that with Chief Presley. Could I have,
They are? Thank you for that verification.
I'm not sure how they picked the students, but I know it filled up pretty quick once it was offered.
Yeah. All right, very good. Any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And give us an update when they start coming through. We'd like to maybe even meet some of them.
Yes, sir. We're hoping that's our future employees coming. That we'll
Yeah,
see in
there you
front of
go.
us. Thank you.
You got your own little farmers league there. Now, item number 14, consideration of possible action to adopt resolution number 2024-2841 regarding civil rights, which includes the following policies: citizen participation, Yeah. Section 3 policy, excessive force policy, limited English proficiency, which I've had a problem with, standards plan. Section 504 policy and grievance procedures, code and conduct policy and fair housing policy, and citizen participation plan and grievance procedures for the Community Block Grant Mitigation CDB program for a GLO state contract 24-065-007-E164.
Again, this is another one of those resolutions and policies that we adopt with every one of the grants that we have just brought forward, the other two GLO grants and this GLO grant. This is required by the GLO and HUD that we have these policies in place. These policies have been updated with all the changes and stuff that have come through. So staff recommends the approval of this resolution and these policies.
All right, just real quick question. So the Community Development Block Grant Plan for GLO state contract number is the same throughout? I mean, we got one big check and we have different parts of it? Because we have this number, the 007-E164 on item number 10, which was the Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Program General Land Office 24-065-007-E164.
Yes.
So it's all the same number, but it's different?
Yes.
Okay.
We have to have the resolution for the different things. It's all this. It's all for the same grant. This is the grant for the water pumping station on Avenue F, the $1.8 million grant.
Okay, I will make the motion that we approve resolution number 2024-2841, and I will look for a second.
Second.
We have a second from Councilman Pena. Any further discussion needed on this item? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried 5-0 unanimously. Thank you. Item number 15, consideration and possible action to approve the commitment of additional funds up to $8,794,500 for the CDBG MIT 22-085-047-D300 project. Kathy?
This is the up to the full amount possible,
Yeah.
which, as I said, we are going to possibly submit the change order. Should be less, but in order for HUD and GLO to move forward to this, that's why it is worded up to and not an exact dollar amount, because it could be less.
All right, I will move that we approve the commitment of additional funds up to $8,794,500 for that project. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
I have a second from Councilman Kane. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried unanimously 5-0. Work session, council may deliberate, make inquiry into any item specifically listed in subsection under the itemized sections A through F below. Councilman Pena, Ward A, announcements and comments.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for coming out here this evening and speaking out and participating. I had a couple of questions based on the comments, but also had some other questions that other residents had reached out to me here in the last couple of weeks. First question I have is, Mr. Reyna had asked or presented that he could run for mayor, and I'm just curious if we're going to rely on his personal legal research to consider that he might be right. And if so, by the fact that he actually put his application in before the deadline,
Actually, I will say this, Jeff.
would we be able to allow him to run?
Yeah, I mean, I think
that
we're
an
going to,
Olson
well, hold
question?
on. This is something that could be on an agenda item and probably will be on next week's agenda, so we can't discuss it. But I do think, and I'll say to Sam, we're going to get an answer pretty dang quick. And Mr. Olson will work on that. But let's schedule this for the next meeting agenda, please. Thank you, sir, Councilman.
All right. This question here was for Mr. Johnson. I meant to ask this one here. I was just curious in terms of the renderings for the first reading here for all of the parks. How much did we spend on those renderings with AID Architects?
Mr. Johnson, if you can come up and address that very quickly, because technically this is something that was discussed and shouldn't be brought up again, but I will allow it.
The city spent, I believe, it was not the EDC that spent it, but the city, I believe, spent $10,000 on the renderings. For the parks?
Came out of the parks budget? Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Came out of the parks budget. Yeah, it came out of the parks budget.
All right, very good, thank you.
Next question I have here was, this is a question for Mr. Olson. Mr. Olson, are any side conversations, any side conversations during the council meeting between fellow councilmen or council and city staff, or for that matter, council and the city attorney, allowed to be whispered or not on the mic, or should everything be recorded and live?
It's all public.
Come up to the
So,
mic, please.
so how do we ensure that that public, that dialogue is made public and kept public? So do we say no side conversations, or do we stop the meeting to make sure that those conversations are mic'd?
We do the best we can to keep everything recorded.
Well, I'm just seeing more and more of it in terms of dialogue between the mayor and city manager before, and the mayor and yourself, and I'm very curious, as are other residents, what's going on?
Oh, we're
What's going
discussing
on?
you.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
And that's-
because-
and
no,
that-
no,
that's
no,
fine,
no, we're-
but just let it be out in the
Yeah,
open.
yeah, no, we're
Yeah.
discussing you,
Yep, a little sneakiness again.
yeah. Jeff, if you knew how much
Come
I
on,
don't
man.
care
That's
about what
enough.
you
That's
say.
enough. That's enough.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Kane?
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank everybody that came out tonight and those that spoke up in the citizens' comments. I'd like to remind everybody that Friday, we have the fathers and daughters dance going on at the River Place. Unfortunately, I'm going to be on call this weekend, so nobody has to watch me dance. It might be fortunately I'm on call. Also Saturday, we have the Share the Love Community Resource Fair in downtown. 9 to 2? Mr. Johnson, does that sound right?
Yes, that's right.
It should be a real informative thing. We're going to have a lot of different resources downtown that many of the people in the city may not be aware that we have, and may be able to take advantage of some things. So make sure we try to make it out there Saturday. Also, Mr. Petty, I appreciate the workshop that you put on. For those of y'all that don't know, typically we get the council packet sent to us via email on Friday afternoon. Okay, so we have Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, up until 6 o'clock to go over it and try to absorb it, try to get as much education as we can that's on the packets. This last week, Mr. Petty had a workshop where we went over some of the stuff that is going to be on the agenda. So we were able to have a understanding up front of what's going on, some of the reasoning behind what's on the agenda. And I just want to thank you for that. I think it was real beneficial. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Matamoros?
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank all the residents who attended in person, viewed online, made comments during citizens' comments and agenda items. I would like to invite everybody to our city meetings that we have for our workshop, which, again, thank you, Mr. Petty. I'd also like to invite everybody to the meetings that we have, our EDC meetings. You will hear a lot of things that we talk about when we have projects within the EDC. You'll gain the knowledge. Thus, when items come in front of council, you'll already have an idea of what has been discussed. With that being said, there are some exciting things going on within Freeport, such as the daddy-daughter dance on Thursday, the community block fair on Saturday. So I just want to say to the residents of Freeport, get involved. We don't try and hide things from anybody. We're pretty well, I know I am. I'm going to speak for myself. Let me take that back. I don't hide anything from anybody. I'll speak to you. So if you have any questions, please come to me. I will speak with you. And let me take a quick drink of my Freeport water. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Rosso?
Yes, I agree with everyone about, the people online and the people that's here that came out to the meeting, especially the ones that made this a good meeting and said a lot of positive things. It's Black History Month. We got about 9 more days, and MLK-CC paid for everyone that wants to go to the museum and see the exhibit, the Black History exhibits that's there downtown Freeport. So take advantage of that. Take your grandkids, your kids, and invite your neighbors. Next item I want to talk about is voting. You have until April the 3rd to register to vote. And I would love for everyone to take somebody to the polls. Voting is important. When you look at how many people are registered to vote and how many people actually vote, you would be totally surprised. It is unbelievable. Sorry for my voice. I got a frog for some reason. Concerning the phenol debts in our area, the 3 that I know of, we had someone here tonight to try to make us look bad, the whole council, the mayor, and everybody to look bad. Well, if you want to spread some news, my wife and I donated quite a bit of sum for one of the funerals. We raised money to bury him. So I count that. That the concern that we had. I actually know 2 of the 3 that most people know of. No relations to me, but I was asked to help, and I did. I helped in both of those incidents. So spread the news. If you heard what happened at the beginning, well, that's not true. That's not true. Don't go on that. When we receive untruth, we should react in some kind of way. And we as a council, mayor, lawyers, we have, like George said, we have no reason to try to make you guys look bad. And we're not going to do it. We do what we do because we want to do it. That's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Petty, announcements and comments?
Just real quick, March 9th is the moving day for City Hall to move into the other building. We're getting all the information out so everyone can see it, and updating the website and all that kind of good stuff. April 27th is going to be our first community cleanup day. We finalized that date today, and we'll be moving forward with that as well.
Mr. Petty, I had asked in the last meeting if I can get a copy of that lease before it was executed. Has that lease been executed already?
Yes, sir.
Can I still get a copy of it?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything else, sir? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion adjourned by Councilman Adam Morris. Is there a second?
It's too early, Mayor.
Okay. Well, I second it. All those in favor say